Just as a reminder, Advent simply means arrival. The arrival of Jesus in his birth, and then as we always talk about the second Advent, when Jesus will come back to usher in his kingdom as he returns as king. And so each week during these 4 weeks, as we're leading up to Christmas, we're going to be looking at different Advent themes. And we looked at hope last week. We look at peace this week, and then it'll be joy, and then love, and as we look at this, as we look at peace this week, before we open Scripture, I want to share a story with you. I want to take you back in time to maybe one of the most remarkable Christmas moments of the last century. Okay, it's a moment when peace broke out at war. Now, you may have heard this before, but it's Christmas Eve, 1914. World War I had been raging now for months. The Western Front is a frozen kind of wasteland. There's muddy trenches, barbed wires, constant gunfire. Young soldiers are exhausted. They're terrified. They're starting to lose hope. And then the British and the German forces, they're only a few hundred yards apart. They're separated by this deadly stretch of ground that they call no man's land. But that night on Christmas Eve, something extraordinary happened. And as darkness settled in, the British soldiers, they started to see across no man's land. They started to see little lights pop up, little candles as they're tied to little evergreen saplings along the German trench. And then they heard singing. Now I'll translate because they were singing in German, but silent night, holy night. And when the sound drifted across no man's land, the British soldiers, they listened quietly, and then they started to respond with their own songs, their own carols. Back and forth they sang songs that they both knew in different languages. And then slowly, the soldiers from both sides, I can just picture the first one really scared, that starts to climb out of their trench. And they met in the middle, and they shook hands, and they exchanged gifts, little gifts of chocolate or cigarettes or buttons. And some of them played soccer together. And for one night on a battlefield, peace broke in. No treaties were signed. No governments changed. The war continued after this for 4 more years. But for a few hours, enemies became friends. The battlefield became a gathering place. And the world caught a glimpse, just a small glimpse, of the kind of peace that our hearts crave. Right? A peace that's deeper than politics, a peace that's stronger than hatred, a peace that comes from beyond us. And so, church, this is the message of Advent, right? Into a world at war, a child was born, a light dawned, a Prince of Peace steps into our no man's land. And so we're going to look again at Isaiah 9:6. We read this earlier, and it says this: "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." That's such a wonderful passage. You've heard it. You've probably heard it every year at Christmas time. You've heard it over and over again. And of all the things that we can do, right, we have this promise of this child. And here's the deal. We love this Christmas story. We love the promise of the story. We love the promise of peace because we love peace. We love the idea of peace anyway. We seem to chase after peace so hard that sometimes we fight so hard that we lose it, right? And so we want peace, we long for peace, but we have trouble finding it. And in fact, we know, like we all know that word peace, and whatever that word picture comes up for you, it might be, you might picture a calm lake, you might picture a quiet hike, you might picture a warm nap, maybe a tie-dye hippie, I don't know what it is, but you picture something. But biblical peace is more than that. It's more than tranquility. It's a different word. The word is shalom. And this is more than an end of war. This is more than a little peace and quiet. This is more than a nice nap. Peace or shalom, it refers to completeness, like a feeling of, not just a feeling, but an actuality of being whole, being complete. And as much as we try, right? If you might try fishing, you might try hiking, you might try gardening, you might try napping, that doesn't bring completeness. In fact, I love fishing, and it makes me really happy. But every time I miss a fish, I don't feel complete, right? It doesn't bring completeness. Because of sin, this world is broken. We said last week, every time we see something broken in this world, every time we scroll through our feed, every time we see something bad that happens in the news, every time something bad happens to us, that needs to be our light, our warning light that tells us that there is hope, right? We talked about hope last week, that there is hope in this world, that there is something good for us, that we're waiting for that second advent. Rather than being like struck down and be like, oh, everything's so bad, we need to shift our eyes to hope. Well, the same thing with peace, right? It's this, our world is broken. It's in pieces. However, Jesus came to give us peace. He came to give us shalom, wholeness, completeness, nothing missing, nothing broken. And so our world needs that today. Our lives need that today. Because everything around us, everything within us feels fractured. Sin has shattered God's creation, right? Like a dropped ornament. And we try to glue things back together, right? We try with resolutions or with politics or with vacations or with self-help. And then we find that none of this works. But Isaiah declares that a child is coming who will carry the government, the whole broken world, on his shoulders. And only he can fix what sin has fractured. Only Jesus, the Prince of Peace, can make things whole. I want to take you back to Isaiah 9:2. So this is before Isaiah talks about Jesus being the Prince of Peace. He says this in Isaiah 9:2, "The people are walking in darkness, but they have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned." Have you ever felt like you were maybe living in deep darkness? Maybe like you're stuck in a cave spiritually or emotionally? Well, church, a light has dawned. I want you to catch this because we tend to just want like light to flood our circumstances. We tend to want to see like every step that needs to come in. But Isaiah tells us a light has dawned, right? It's not full sun yet. It's not full sunrise yet, but just enough to see hope, enough to see that peace is coming. And for us, right, a light has dawned. We get a glimpse of what shalom will be like, what it could be like, but we have not yet fully experienced it. We see how Jesus would bring healing. We see how Jesus brings completeness. We see how he can bring shalom to people that he would come across. We see that he would heal the sick. We see that he helps people with leprosy. We see that he gives people the ability to walk. He raises people from the dead. He heals the blind. He feeds the hungry. He gave those in sin, like the adulterous woman, he brings them peace. He brings them completeness wherever he went. Right, that's the Prince of Peace, the Prince of Shalom. But for us, a light has only dawned. Right, as he heals people, as he does all the things that he does, a light has only dawned. And as we look at the light, as we wait for greater things, as we wait for the light of the world to come again, to bring shalom forever, here's the deal. When we see Jesus, we see a light that has dawned, right? And here we are, it's Christmas time. We love baby Jesus in a manger. It's so peaceful. We gather around singing Silent Night. It's beautiful. But Jesus' birth is just the first light of dawn. His miracles, his healing the sick, his feeding the hungry, his forgiving sinners are just glimpses of coming completeness. Every miracle is a preview of the world restored. And church, we live in that dawn. That's where we live. We have a taste of peace, but we long for its fullness. Now, everyone during the time of Jesus, remember, they expected a Messiah to come in. They expected a warrior to come in. They expected someone to come and destroy Rome, to crush our enemies, to restore Israel with force. But Jesus came as a baby. Because he wanted, as he came, if he were to come as the warrior king, his whole plan is eventually to come and destroy sin. So if Jesus came for the first time as the warrior king to come and destroy sin, he would have to destroy us with it. And so God comes, and he doesn't want to just wipe out evil he doesn't want to wipe out evil while wiping out his people. And so Jesus came first to deal with the evil inside us before he would deal with the evil around us. He came gently, he came humbly to rescue before he returns as his conquering king. The first time he came to save us from sin. The second time he will come to remove sin completely. And then he comes again, and he will bring ultimate peace. And the plan is to wipe out sin without wiping out you and me. And as we think about this verse, a light has dawned. It reminded me of John 8, starting in verse 12. And Jesus makes a declaration. He says, I am the light of the world. Whoever comes to me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And as we read this very simple statement that Jesus makes, there's a lot more going on. He's letting the world know that he is this dawning light that was spoke of all the way back in Isaiah. That he is the fully visible light. It's no longer hidden. We can put our trust in the light of the world, and we can be forgiven of our sin. We can be saved for all eternity. I want you to look at the statement that Jesus makes, because there's a lot of background that's going on here. And when Jesus makes this statement, there's so much more going on. If you go back to chapter 7, you would see actually that there's the time that he's making this statement, it's during the Festival of Booths, or the Feast of Tabernacles. And if you don't know what that is, it's an 8-day celebration of God's care for their ancestors. You might remember when they were in the wilderness, and there's a pillar of fire by night, and there's clouds by day, and they would move as the Lord would tell them to move as they were searching for the promised land. And they would set up these temporary dwellings or booths. And so during this festival of booths, what they would do is they would set up some temporary houses of tree branches set on the top of the roofs of their houses, and they would live there, and they'd kind of camp out, and they'd have this big festival, and everyone would be coming to Jerusalem to take part in this festival. So there'd be more people than ever, and there'd be singing, and there'd be dancing, there'd be torch lighting, parades, there'd be people marching around the city in imitation of Israel's great victory over Jericho. And at night, during the week, the priests, they would light 4 large candelabra. And the glow from that light, you would be able to see that across the city. And these lamps were to remind the Jews of the pillar of fire which God led Israel through the darkness. And the people of Israel, they'd be reminded that Psalm 27 says, the Lord is my light and my salvation. That Psalm 119 says, the word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. That Isaiah 60 says, arise and shine, your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Imagine these lights, right? Imagine these lamps. They're lit. They're huge. There's so much light in the darkness. And then at the end of the festival, the lamps go out. The lighting fades. Darkness returns over the city. And then Jesus says, "Here I am. I am the light of the world. I will show you the way to the new promised land. I will show you to your new inheritance. I will show you to the kingdom of God. I will make the way. If you believe in me, like your forefathers believed in God, if you follow the pillar of fire, as they followed the pillar of fire into the wilderness, as you follow me, the light of the world, I will bring you into your new promised land. I am the promised Messiah that you have been waiting for. I am the light of the world. I will bring completeness. I will bring shalom." Jesus is the light. Right? He's not a symbol of the light. He's not a memory. He is the light of the world. He is saying, hey, the dawn that Isaiah has spoke of, the shalom, the peace that you longed for, the redemption that you've prayed for, it's here and it's found in Jesus. And here's what's so great about Jesus, because Jesus doesn't just show up and say, "Hey guys, it's me, light of the world." No, he shows us that he's the light of the world. And so before Jesus even does that, he has another interaction earlier in chapter 8. And I already made reference to this, but in verse 2 of chapter 8, I want you to read this to me, and I want you to see how Jesus brings completeness. It says, "At dawn, he appeared again at the temple courts, where the people were gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. And the teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said, 'Jesus, teacher, this woman was caught in adultery. In the law of Moses, it commands us to stone such a woman. What do you say?' They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and he started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning them, he straightened up and he said to them, 'Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her.' Again, he stooped down and he wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and he asked her, 'Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?' 'No one, sir,' she said. 'Then neither do I condemn you,' Jesus declared. 'Go now and leave your life of sin.'" Now, there's a lot that can be said here, a lot that can be said in this passage. I could preach a whole sermon on this, but there's some things that I want to highlight today. This woman who's been caught in adultery, right? She's thrown in front of Jesus. She's ashamed. She's exposed. Her life is broken. The crowd wants judgment. But Jesus brings peace. Rather than exposing the woman, he exposes the accusers as hypocrites. He protects the woman. He restores her dignity. He forgives her sin. And he offers her a new way forward. That's shalom in action. When the world was against her, Jesus is for her. When others brought condemnation, Jesus brings completeness. When her life is shattered, Jesus brings restoration. And then he says, "I am the light of the world." In other words, this is what my light does. It doesn't just reveal sin, it heals it. And so I think the question that Jesus has for us today is this: Are you in need of peace today? Like if you walked in here today and you walked in feeling incomplete, if you walked in and your life feels fractured, if you walked in and you're stumbling in darkness, Jesus offers peace today. Not someday. Not when you get your life cleaned up. Not when your circumstances improve. But he's here today. And he's the light that has dawned. The Prince of Peace. The one who makes broken things whole. And if you're here today and you're a Jesus follower, you're like, man, I feel like I'm doing okay. I know I'm not perfect, but I'm really trying to follow after Jesus. You carry that same light. In Matthew 5:14, Jesus says that you are the light of the world. A city, a town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may also see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Jesus doesn't only give us his peace, but he invites us into his mission of peace. You are the light of the world. The light of the world shines through you. And so this means, Christian, you're trying to follow Jesus. What do we do? When people shame others, we bring peace. When the world judges, we show mercy. When culture divides, we bring unity. When there's brokenness, we carry shalom. We are to be the pockets of dawn in a dark world. We are to be the previews of the coming kingdom. It is our job to be the ambassadors of the Prince of Peace. And so, church, the Prince of Peace has come. A light has dawned. And as we await for its fullness, may we be people who would receive his peace, that would walk in his light, and who would shine his shalom to the world.